The flight touched down at exactly 6 p.m., and by 6:45, I was standing outside my apartment building. The evening air was cool, but the knot in my gut burned hot. I stared up at the 7th-floor window, our living room. One of the lamps was on. Behind that faint orange glow, my wife Kathy moved, casting a soft silhouette against the curtains. And she wasn't alone. I wasn't supposed to be here. She thought I was still in Dallas, shaking hands and closing contracts. But the meeting ended early. I didn't text, didn't call. Some men bring flowers home after a trip. I brought the truth. I took a slow breath and reached into my pocket. The phone buzzed once. I scrolled through my contacts and tapped Linda Blackwell. She picked up on the second ring. "Ben," she said, voice sharp, curious. "Where are you?" "Outside my building," I replied, eyes locked on the window above. 7th floor, 2 figures moving inside. She was quiet for a beat. Then, "And your wife?" "She's in there with Roger." Curtains drawn. Lingerie, probably. They're real cozy. Linda didn't gasp, didn't cry. We'd already done that weeks ago. Together. She simply said, "You're sure?" "I know my apartment. I know my wife. And I know that bastard's watch silhouette when I see it flash against my lamp." Another pause. Then her tone shifted, steady, clipped, no nonsense. "Then it starts tonight." "Yeah," I said, my voice low and even. "It starts now." I ended the call and walked through the lobby, nodding at the doorman like it was just another Tuesday. The elevator chimed, doors sliding open, and there he was, Roger Blackwell. The man was standing inside, alone, fixing his collar in the mirrored wall like he belonged here, like he hadn't just screwed another man's wife in that man's bed. His hair was still damp. Cheap cologne clawed at the air. He didn't recognize me at first, too busy admiring himself. That was Roger, all teeth and fake tan. "Roger," I said flatly. His head whipped around. His face tightened like a rubber band stretched too far. "Ben." I stepped in with a calm smile and reached into my coat. His whole body tensed. For a second, he thought I had a gun. But no, I held up a black leather wallet. "You dropped this," I said. His eyes flicked to it, confused. I don't think." I pressed it into his chest with just enough force to make the moment land. "Sure you did." His hands took it reflexively. I didn't blink. We stood there in the silence of the elevator lobby. The hum of the bulbs overhead. The slow grind of the other car moving above us. "I didn't know you were back," he stammered. "Yeah, well," I said, stepping back. "Surprise." I left him there, holding the wallet that wasn't his, and took the next elevator up. Floor 7. Kathy's floor. My floor. The ride up was slow, quiet, padded in that hotel lobby silence only luxury buildings seem to manage. My reflection stared back at me. Neat beard, clean shirt, tie still knotted. I looked like a man coming home from work, not a man preparing to burn the house down. The elevator doors opened, and the hallway welcomed me like an old friend. Same beige carpet, the same light flicker near 712. I walked past it, straight to our door, 714. I didn't pause, didn't listen, just unlocked it, slow and deliberate. Inside, the apartment smelled like cinnamon candles and perfume. Soft jazz played from the speaker in the corner. Kathy was in the kitchen pouring wine, red, 2 glasses. She turned, startled for half a second. Then she smiled. "Big, fake, Ben, you're home early." She was wearing a satin robe, short, red, revealing. "You should have told me. I wanted to surprise you." She laughed too hard. "Well, you did." I looked around. Living room pillows fluffed. Bedroom door closed. Her hair was tousled in a way that wasn't natural. Her perfume was layered thick, too thick. And beneath it all, there was something else. Smoke, sweat, male cologne. I smiled, calm. "Smells nice in here." She beamed. "I lit that new cinnamon candle you like. Thought it'd be cozy." I walked into the living room, set my bag down. "Where's the other glass going?" She froze, just for a second, then laughed again, eyes dancing nervously. "Oh, I figured you'd want wine when you got home." I nodded, very thoughtful, and as she turned to grab a coaster, I looked at the hallway at the closed bedroom door. Roger was still there, stupid, arrogant, and now trapped. Perfect. Kathy handed me the wine glass with a smile that had worked on me for years. Smooth, sultry, practiced. But tonight it didn't land. I took the glass and gave her nothing. Not a compliment, not a kiss, not even eye contact. She was trying too hard. The robe barely held together. Her lipstick was fresh, but there was a faint smudge near the corner of her mouth. A bruise peeked out from her collarbone. One that hadn't come from me. "I was going to surprise you tomorrow," she said, walking toward the couch with a forced sway in her hips. "I booked a spa day for us, though we could relax, unwind." I sat down in the armchair, across from her usual spot. "You've been busy, huh?" She smiled again, but her eyes darted, quick flickers to the hallway, the bedroom door, the time on the wall clock. "You know me, always keeping things interesting." "Oh, I know you." I took a sip. 17 years, hard not to. She tilted her head. "Is that a dig?" "Nope, just a memory." I let the silence hang. 17 years ago today, actually. She blinked. "Today. Our anniversary, Kathy." The smile slipped for the briefest second. "Ben, God, I thought next week." "Nope." I leaned back. "July 23rd. I remember because I paid for the catering, booked the venue, and fixed your father's tie before you walked down the aisle. Thought maybe you'd remember too." Her cheeks flushed. I've just been so wrapped up in." "Yeah, wrapped up." I cut in, swirling the wine in my glass. "What word do you want to use?" She stood quickly, grabbing a throw blanket and pulling it around her. "What's with the tone?" I smiled, slow and steady. "Just trying to catch up. I feel like I've missed so much." She paced now, nervous energy bubbling beneath the surface. "You said you'd be in Dallas until Thursday." I wrapped up early. Thought I'd come home, surprise my wife. You know, candles, wine, maybe some good old-fashioned reconnection. She turned, forced a laugh. "Well, I'm not complaining." "No, you wouldn't be." I watched her closely. She was unraveling. The robe was loose. Her hands fidgeted with the belt. She looked toward the hallway again. That door was a ticking bomb, and she knew it. "You look nice," I said finally. She looked down at herself, then backed up. "You think?" "Oh yeah, looks like someone's been putting effort in." I paused. "For someone." She froze again, and this time the mask cracked. "Ben, what are you trying to say?" "I'm not trying to say anything." I stood, walked past her toward the hallway, fingers grazing the wall like I was remembering every inch of this place. "I just think it's funny. You're all dolled up, wine poured, candles lit." I looked over my shoulder. "But I didn't call to say I was coming home." She swallowed hard. I do that sometimes. For myself. Right?" I stopped at the bedroom door. My hand rested on the knob. She moved fast, stepping between me and the door, blocking it with her body. "I was going to surprise you." "You did." I stared down at her. "Let me guess. You were going to change into something even more revealing. Throw me on the bed. Tell me how much you missed me." "Ben, tell me," I said softly. "Did you change the sheets?" Her mouth opened, closed. "That's a no." I stepped around her slowly, didn't open the door, just made sure she knew I could, that I might. "I missed you," she said suddenly, desperate. "I've just been lonely, I guess. You travel so much. Work is nonstop. I needed something to feel close to you." I turned to face her fully. "You needed someone, all right?" She started crying. Not the kind of crying that comes from guilt, but the kind born of fear. Fear of being found out. Fear of losing comfort. I set my wine glass down. "You know what the worst part is?" She wiped her cheek, shaking her head. "I'd have forgiven you, once, years ago, if you'd been honest." I stepped forward. "But this fake show? The robe, the wine, the candles? You're not sorry. You're just caught." Her shoulders slumped, mascara already streaking. I don't know what you're talking about. That's when I smiled, cold and thin. Sure you don't. And then, for just a moment, I tilted my head and listened. A soft thump, a shuffle. From the bedroom. She heard it too. Her face was drained of color. You want to open the door? I said quietly. Or should I? She didn't move. Thought so. I walked back to the living room, picked up my phone, and typed 2 words to Linda. Stage 1. Then I looked at Kathy. Really looked at her. Finish your wine, sweetheart, I said, voice calm and even. You'll need it. The ballroom at the Grand Marlowe Hotel shimmered under soft gold lighting. White linen tablecloths, floating candles, and a 3-tiered cake with our wedding photo airbrushed on the top. It looked like the perfect anniversary celebration. That was the point. Kathy's family was already gathered, buzzing with cheerful ignorance. Her mother Becky waved me over the second I walked in. Ben, you sly dog, pulling off a surprise party like this. I kissed her cheek. It's a special night. Nathan, Kathy's father, clapped me on the back. 17 years. She's lucky to have you. Is that so? I said, forcing a smile. They'd all been invited under the illusion that Kathy was the guest of honor. A heartfelt dinner, some toasts, maybe a slideshow. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the real show wasn't at this hotel. It was back at our apartment. And it is starting now. I glanced at my watch. 7:59. At that moment, across town, Linda stepped out of her SUV and walked into my building, a key fob in her hand. The building staff knew her as my sister. That lie had earned us access to the security footage, the service elevator, and more importantly, our own key to the apartment. Still no sign of Kathy? Becky asked, sipping a glass of Prosecco. Maybe she's running late, I said, straight-faced. Nathan scoffed. She's never late for a party. I looked him dead in the eye. No, she's not. 8:02, my phone buzzed. A photo came through. Linda, standing in our bedroom doorway, camera aimed past a wide-eyed Roger as he scrambled to hide under the covers. Kathy's robe was on the floor, her eyes half-lidded, lipstick smudged, one heel still on. The next text, streaming to the big screen now. Ready? I replied, play it, and walk out. I cleared my throat and tapped my wineglass with the side of a fork. The room settled. Her family turned toward me. Thank you all for coming tonight, I said, calm as a surgeon. Kathy will be here shortly. But I thought while we waited, I'd show you all something special. Becky clapped her hands. A video montage? Something like that. I hit play. The screen behind me flickered to life. At first, soft jazz played, innocent, misleading. Then the camera angle appeared, our bedroom from the far corner. The bed in frame. The sound sharpened. Kathy's voice, breathy and laughing. You better hurry up before he comes home. Roger's face. Close up. Relax. He's in Dallas till Thursday. The room went dead silent. Nathan stood up fast, chair scraping against the floor. What the hell is this? Becky gasped, hand covering her mouth. Kathy appeared on screen in her robe, then out of it. Roger followed. The bed creaked. Her moaning filled the speakers like a funeral bell. Then the bedroom door flew open in the video. Linda stormed in. Smile for the camera, jackass. The feed cut. For a full 10 seconds, no one moved. Then, Nathan turned, fists clenched, face red. Where is she? Becky was already crying. Her sister Megan sat with her mouth hanging open. I kept my tone level. Right now, probably trying to convince Roger they can still play house. But I figured her family deserved the truth. The room erupted. Nathan stormed out, phone to his ear, barking orders. She picks up that phone or I'm coming through that damn door. Becky turned to me, trembling. How long, Ben? I shrugged. Long enough. Megan stood, shaking her head. I don't believe it. She wouldn't do this to you, to us. Believe what you want, I said. I just thought you all should know who you've been defending for the last decade. Just then, the ballroom doors flew open. Kathy stood there, hair tangled, makeup smeared. wearing the same robe from the video, only now with leggings underneath, thrown on in a rush. She froze when she saw the crowd. Becky gasped. Nathan charged toward her. "You disgusting little..." Kathy backed up, hands raised. "Dad, wait!" But Nathan grabbed Roger, who had slipped in behind her, and threw the first punch. Then another. Roger hit the ground with a grunt. "Dad, stop!" Kathy screamed. Nathan turned on her, eyes burning. "You don't call me that. Not anymore." Roger spat blood. "It wasn't. She said you were separated." Another punch. I stayed seated the whole time, wine in hand, watching it unfold. Becky approached Kathy slowly. "You shame this family," she said coldly. "You spit on your vows, on your child's memory, on everything we gave you." "I made a mistake," Kathy sobbed. "Ben and I were struggling. Don't drag me into your excuses," I said, standing now. "You weren't struggling. You were bored. And now you're exposed." Kathy looked around, desperate for someone, anyone, to defend her. But her family turned away, one by one. I slipped my phone back in my pocket and headed toward the door. "Where are you going?" she asked. "To get some fresh air." I paused. "You might want to start thinking about where you'll sleep tonight, because it won't be with me, or him, or anyone in this room." I left to the sound of silence, exactly how I planned it. There are 3 kinds of men in this world. I've seen all of them, and I'm not impressed. First, there's the crier, the man who falls apart the second his heart breaks. Sobs in parking lots, begs for second chances from women who stopped respecting him years ago. He wears his pain like a badge, hoping pity will turn into redemption. Then there's the brawler, the guy who punches holes in drywall and tries to bleed his rage out through fists. He shouts at judges, threatens everyone, burns his own life down just to make a point. And last, the walker, the one who says nothing, packs a bag, and vanishes. He's quiet. You might even call him wise. But he never settles the score. He just leaves the mess behind and tries to outrun the echo. I'm none of those. I'm the 4th kind. The kind who remembers. The kind who plans. The kind who never lets you see the punch coming, because it's not a punch. It's a wrecking ball wrapped in velvet. Kathy stood in the hallway of the hotel, slouched against the wall like a wrecked prom queen after a rainstorm. Her father had left. Her mother too. Even Megan, the one who always stood up for her during family fights, walked out with a look that said, "You're not mine anymore." Roger, bruised and humiliated, had slithered off to lick his wounds. Kathy looked at me as I came back in. "Ben, can we just talk? Alone?" "Sure," I said. "Let's talk." We found a quiet conference room down the hall. Empty, clean, beige walls, and too much carpet. She sat across from me, clutching a tissue, still wearing that damn robe like it was armor. "I know what you think," she started. "But it wasn't just physical. Roger and he understands me. You've been so cold lately, always working, always gone." I just stared at her. She kept going. "I needed something real, and Roger gave me that." I felt alive again. "You're not 25, Kathy. This isn't a Nicholas Sparks novel." She flinched. "Ben, come on. Let's skip the performance," I said, leaning forward. "You love him, right?" "I do. Are you planning to leave me?" A pause. "Yes." "Great." I nodded. "Then let's make it official." She blinked. "What do you mean?" I pulled out the divorce papers I'd prepared months ago. Slide them across the table. "You walk with $5,000. No alimony. No house. No car. You get to keep your clothes and your freedom. That's it." Her jaw dropped. $5,000? Are you out of your mind?" "Nope. Just done playing games." She pushed the papers away. "You think I'll sign this? I'll get a lawyer." I pulled out a second document, her NDA from when we launched my company. "You break this clause by dragging my name through court, and I sue you for defamation. You want to gamble, Kathy? Be my guest." She looked at the papers again. Her hands trembled. "Roger will take care of me. He has money. He, still married," I said flatly, "to Linda, The woman I just spent the last 3 months planning this with. Her lips parted. Confusion, disbelief, then panic. You're lying. Am I? I took out my phone. I opened a photo. Linda's hand, complete with her wedding ring, clasped in Roger's on the balcony of some hotel. Date stamped from 3 days ago. Kathy stared at the screen like it was a death certificate. I said nothing, just watched. She finally picked up the pen. Signed. I gathered the paperwork, tucked it into my briefcase, and stood. You think you won? She asked. No, I said. I'm not finished yet. She looked up, eyes red, mascara melted. Why are you doing this? Because I'm not a crier, not a brawler, not a runner. I'm the man you thought was too soft to see through you. I walked to the door, paused, and looked back. And I'm just getting started. 3 days after she signed the papers, Kathy walked out of my life with nothing but a rolling suitcase and a fragile sense of control. She tried to make it look like a power move. High heels clicking against the courthouse marble, sunglasses hiding her bruised ego. Roger met her at the curb in his black Mercedes, leaned over the console, and kissed her like she was a prize. I watched from across the street, leaning against my truck. No hate in my eyes, just clarity. She had no idea Roger wasn't divorced, that his car payments were 6 months behind, that the business he talked about was a trust fund he'd been leeching off, and Linda had started freezing the accounts. And she had no idea the watch she admired on his wrist was a loaner from a pawn shop. But the best part? Linda was listening in. She'd sewn a mic into Roger's overnight bag 2 weeks earlier. Every smooth lie, every whispered promise, every delusional fantasy about their new life together was piped straight into her phone. Kathy was leaning into the passenger seat when she asked, "So when are you finalizing the divorce?" Roger replied like a true con man. "Any day now, baby. My lawyer's just dragging his feet. Linda's being difficult, but I'm working on it." We had the audio, crystal clear. Linda sent me the file that evening. I didn't need to hear it. I'd already lived it. But I played it once, just to let the smug echo of Kathy's voice confirm what I'd already known. She hadn't just betrayed me, she'd played herself. At noon the next day, Roger brought Kathy into a downtown cafe, same place he used to meet Linda for lunch. He ordered a bottle of wine, handed the waitress a card, and smiled like he owned the block. Declined. He handed another. Declined again. Kathy looked nervous. The waitress asked if they had another form of payment. Roger started fumbling through his wallet. That's when I walked in. The hostess recognized me. I used to take Kathy here on anniversaries. I made a beeline for their table. Kathy looked up and froze. Roger had the audacity to smirk. "Are you stalking us now?" "No," I said. "Just watching." I turned to the waitress. "Put it on mine." She nodded, eyes wide. Roger opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "This is a nice place. Shame to see someone pretend they can afford it." Kathy flushed red. "What do you want, Ben?" "Nothing," I said, pulling up a chair. "Just came to remind you, Roger's still married. No assets. Credit's trash. And Linda's cutting the leash this week." Roger chuckled. "You don't know a damn thing." I pulled out a document one Linda had drafted. Property reassignment. "This says otherwise." He looked at it, color draining from his face. "I told you," I said, tapping the paper. "You played the wrong game with the wrong people." Kathy reached across the table, snatching the document. Her eyes scanned it. "This isn't real. Ask him." Roger looked away. "You left a marriage for a man who can't buy dinner without a loan," I said. "You gave up everything for someone who already had everything to lose." I stood up, tossed $100 bill on the table, and looked them both in the eye. $5,000, Kathy. That's what you thought I was worth. Turns out, it's more than what you've got now." Then I turned to the waitress. "Keep the change." As I walked out, I didn't look back. Some men cry, some men fight. I dismantled it. Roger had always fancied himself a businessman. Smooth talk, fake watches, leased cars, and buzzwords. The kind of man who knew how to flash a smile but not how to read the fine print. That's what made him easy to bait. Linda called him on a Monday morning, her voice carefully laced with regret. "Roger, I've been thinking, maybe we don't need to end this with lawyers. Maybe we can settle things like adults." He took the bait like the amateur he was. By Wednesday, he was sitting in Linda's private office. High-rise windows overlooking the city, glass walls, polished concrete floors. She looked every bit the executive. Tight bun, navy suit, no jewelry except the ring she'd soon remove. Kathy sat next to him, out of place in her Forever 21 blouse and nervous smile. Linda slid the documents across the desk, her tone even, almost warm. "This is a preliminary asset reallocation agreement. If you sign here, Roger, I'll agree to let go of the prenup and release control of the company's shell holdings." Roger blinked. "Wait, seriously? You're giving me shares?" "Not shares. Entities. Subsidiaries. Assets that have technically been tied up under my name, but..." She smiled. "But I think it's time you got your fair share." I watched from the next room, through the mirrored glass. Arms crossed, silent. He didn't ask a single question. Didn't request a lawyer. Didn't notice the line item titled debt assumption. Blackwell Holdings $12,470,000 buried halfway through the document. He just signed, like a good little thief thinking he finally got away clean. Linda stood and extended her hand. "Congratulations. You now own $12 million in commercial debt. And zero equity." Roger laughed nervously. What the hell does that mean?" "It means you just became the proud owner of a corporate carcass. Empty shells with unpaid taxes, frozen lines of credit, and lawsuits pending in 3 states. Kathy stood up. "That wasn't the deal." "There was no deal," Linda snapped. "There was a trap. And you both walked in with your shoes off." She opened a drawer and handed Roger an envelope. "Your divorce papers, already signed and filed. Per the prenup, you leave with nothing." He opened the envelope with shaking hands. Linda turned to Kathy. "As for you, this was never your seat." Kathy scoffed. "You can't talk to me like that. You're not my mother." "No," Linda said, her voice ice. "I'm the wife you tried to replace. And now I'm the one evicting you from a life you were never smart enough to steal." Roger's hands trembled. "You can't do this. You loved me. I loved a man. You turned into a leech." He turned to Kathy. "Say something. Help me." She stepped back. "You told me you owned all this." "I did. I thought I did." I stepped into the room then. Calm, clean, steady. "You didn't read the fine print, Roger." He turned, color draining from his face. You planned this?" Linda answered for me. "From the first day I showed him the security footage of you two in that hotel. That was the moment you lost." Roger lunged for the desk, grabbing the documents, scanning them like he could undo the ink. "You signed," I said flatly. "It's done." Linda leaned forward. "And the IRS will be in touch." Kathy's lip trembled. "Ben, this is too far." I looked at her not with anger, but with indifference. "You left me for a lie. Now you're married to it." Roger slumped into the chair. "I'm ruined." "No, Roger," I said. "You're just exposed." Kathy took a step toward me. "You wanted this. You waited for this." "I planned for it," I corrected. "The second you stopped being my wife and started being his accessory." Linda pulled off her wedding ring and dropped it into Roger's lap. "Get out of my building." Neither of them moved. So I stepped forward, opened the office door wide, and pointed. "Now." They shuffled past me, humiliated, broken, silent. Linda looked at me and nodded. "One more move." "One," I said. "Just one." Because this game, it wasn't over. Not until I saw them try to smile again and choke on it. The BMW dealership on 5th was the kind of place that smelled like leather, espresso, and arrogance. Floor-to-ceiling glass, slick white floors, salesmen with too much gel and too little knowledge. I wasn't there to shop. Not really. I already knew what I wanted. The M8 competition, black on black, custom-stitched interior. But I could have picked that car online. No, I was there because I had a feeling. And like clockwork, the fools showed up. Roger and Kathy strolled through the double glass doors like they owned the place. She had on oversized sunglasses and heels she could barely walk in. He wore a blazer 2 sizes too tight and a Rolex he couldn't afford even before the fallout. They were loud, laughing, tossing keys on the desk, flirting with the idea of luxury like it might erase what they'd lost. I watched from the far side of the showroom, leaning against the hood of my car. The salesman had already pulled it out front, paperwork signed and sealed. Linda had wired me a bonus last week, her way of saying thanks for the surgical precision of the takedown. Roger swaggered up to the counter. "We're looking for something high-end," he said loudly. "Money's not an issue." I saw the salesman glance at him, then at his file. No credit approval on record. No pre-qualification. Just noise. Kathy sauntered toward a white 7 Series, running her hand along the polished door. "This one's nice, babe. We'd look great pulling up in this." Roger grinned. "We'll take it." The salesman cleared his throat. "Of course. Let me just process the payment." Roger handed him a card with a flourish. "MX Platinum. Probably expired." The man walked off. Kathy leaned over and kissed Roger's cheek. "See? Told you it was our time now." That's when I walked over. Smooth. Uninvited. "Hope you didn't bet the whole pot on that card," I said. They turned. Roger first, trying to hold the smirk, then Kathy, who tensed the moment she saw me. "What do you want, Ben?" she snapped. "Nothing," I said. "I'm just here to pick up my car. You know, the one I can afford." Roger rolled his eyes. "You think this intimidates me?" I didn't answer. I just looked over at the front desk, where the salesman was now returning without the keys. "Sir," he said carefully, holding the card between 2 fingers like it was contaminated. "It appears this was declined." Roger blinked. "Try it again." I did. 3 times. Roger fumbled for another, handed it over. Declined. Kathy's smile started to falter. She pulled out her purse, offered a joint account debit card. One I knew for a fact had been drained last week by a garnishment order. The salesman tapped the screen, waited, and shook his head. "I'll need to ask you to step aside if you're unable to finalize a purchase." Roger's voice raised. "Do you know who I am?" "Sure do," I said, grinning. "You're the guy who signed $12 million in debt and lost his wife in the same week." The room got quiet. A few heads turned. Kathy stepped forward. "Ben, this is low, even for you." "No," I said. "This is real. You walked out with $5,000 and a fantasy. Now you're in public, broke, loud, and rejected. Again." Roger's face was red now. "You smug little." The salesman stepped between us, voice firm. "Sir, if you're not making a purchase, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Just then, my guy pulled up front with the M8. The engine purred like a war drum. I tossed the keys I'd been holding in my hand, caught them in the air, and walked past them both. But not before I stopped beside Kathy and dropped my voice low enough for only her to hear. "Don't act rich if you're not." Then I slid into the driver's seat, closed the door, and pulled away, watching their stunned faces shrink in the rearview mirror. There are some defeats that don't require fists, just timing. They came to Linda's office like lambs walking into a butcher shop, dressed to impress, masks firmly in place. Roger wore a tailored navy suit he couldn't afford, and Kathy, well, she still thought heels and lipstick could buy her credibility. They thought this was their redemption arc. Linda had baited the hook well, sent Roger an email marked confidential. Merger finalization meeting. Said she was willing to discuss a potential business handover to avoid a lengthy legal war. It was a lie, of course. There was no merger, just the final trap. I was already there when they arrived, sitting in the corner chair, silent, watching. Roger walked in first, confident. "Linda," he said with that signature fake charm. "Appreciate you being open-minded about this. I think it's smart that we all act like adults." Linda didn't even look up. She was focused on a manila folder. Sit. Kathy followed, scanning the room like she might find sympathy tucked behind a curtain. She found none. Linda closed the folder and finally looked at Roger. I wanted you both here because it's important that you hear the terms of your new reality. Together. Roger chuckled. Look, I know things got messy. You and Ben went nuclear on us. But we can move past that. I'm willing to make this clean. She tilted her head. Oh, it's clean. That's the problem. Too clean. You see, when I sold you those shell companies, I transferred every ounce of liability, every unpaid loan, every lawsuit, every back tax penalty. He froze. You told me. I told you what you wanted to hear, Linda snapped. And you signed it. No lawyer. No questions. Just greed. Kathy's voice cracked. You tricked him. No, Linda said, rising from her seat. He tricked himself. You both did. She pulled a document from the folder and tossed it on the table. That's your balance sheet. You owe $12.6 million to various banks, creditors, and tax agencies. Congratulations, Mr. Blackwell. You're bankrupt. Roger's hands shook as he picked it up. This can't be legal. Linda turned to me. Ben, what's that line you always use? I stood, slow and deliberate. Don't skip the fine print if you plan to steal the whole damn book. Kathy stood up. You planned this together? I looked her dead in the eye. The day you let him into my bed. Roger turned to Kathy. You said she wouldn't go through with the divorce. That she'd settle. You said she'd fold. Kathy stepped back. Don't pin this on me. You said you were rich. You said this was handled. Linda sat back down, calm and detached. Oh, and Roger. There's more. She handed him a final envelope. He opened it with trembling hands. This is. My legal counsel just filed it with the court. That's your official divorce decree. It activates the prenup. You walk away with nothing but the debt you just bought. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Linda turned to Kathy. And you? You were just a midlife crisis with bad timing. I hope you didn't expect a seat at this table. Kathy's face flushed. I gave up everything for him. Linda smiled coldly. And he gave you nothing in return. So I guess that makes you even. Roger turned on Kathy now, eyes wild. This is your fault. You made me leave her. You said she'd never go nuclear. Kathy slapped him. Hard. Silence followed. I walked to the table, picked up the divorce papers, and looked at them one last time. Funny thing about power, I said. You never have to raise your voice to use it. I turned to Roger. You had my wife. Now you have my debt. Then I turned to Kathy. And you? You have your freedom. No friends. No family. No backup plan. Just a man who's about to be audited into the Stone Age. Linda stood and opened the door. You're done here. Both of you. They walked out, slow, broken, hollow. No one said goodbye. Linda closed the door behind them, locked it, and looked at me. That's it. I nodded. That's the last move. She poured 2 glasses of scotch and handed me one. To endings, she said. I raised mine. To earn ones. We drank. And just like that, it was done. 1 year later, I stood on the back patio of my new home, 3 acres of quiet, pine-lined serenity on the edge of Lake Champlain. The morning sun broke across the water, painting the waves in gold. The air smelled like cedar and espresso. Max and Luna, my 2 German shepherds, sprinted across the yard like they owned it. And in a way, they did. They'd stuck by me through it all. When the house was empty and my chest felt like a hollow drum, they were there. When the lies came crashing down, they didn't flinch. Dogs don't betray. Behind me, I heard footsteps on the hardwood. Linda stepped out onto the deck, barefoot in one of my old flannel shirts, holding 2 mugs of coffee. Her wedding ring, a simple platinum band, caught the light. Dogs beat us outside again, she said, smiling. They earned it, I replied, taking my mug. She kissed me, soft and slow, and leaned against the railing. Hard to believe it's only been a year. Feels longer, I said, but better. We'd gotten married 6 months ago in a small ceremony with no speeches, No photographers and no lies. Just vows we meant and people we trusted. I'd sold the old apartment. Shut down the LLCs Kathy tried to milk. I kept the business, the patents, and the peace. Everything else got cleared out like smoke from a burned-down room. Kathy? Last I heard, she was living in a second-rate rental outside Albany. After Roger's accounts were frozen and his assets seized, she tried to assault him during a screaming match in a gas station parking lot. A security guard caught the whole thing on video. She is 18 months old. Out in 9, maybe. Roger? Infertile. That beating from Nathan had ruptured something, and the lawsuits dried up what little pity he could scavenge. He works part-time now, a car lot on the edge of town, selling pre-owned dreams. They stopped pretending they were in love after the second eviction notice. Linda and I didn't talk about them much anymore. I didn't need to. This wasn't about rubbing salt in wounds. This was about building something new, something earned. I've been thinking, Linda said, watching the dogs chase each other. We should build them a bigger kennel. I nodded. We've got the space. We stood there a while longer, drinking coffee, not saying much. I didn't need words. Not anymore. I'd said everything I needed to with silence, timing, and action. Some men cry. Some men fight. I remember. I plan. I rebuilt it. And I never, ever lose sleep over people who thought they could replace me.